If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
We're going to talk about mulch here, and mulch is a key element to gardening across the board. Now, there are good mulches, and there are bad mulches.
Right. So I know like if you're new to gardening, or maybe you're not new to gardening.
Let's identify what a mulch is.
Well, that's what I'm going to get into.
All right.
Just calm down.
All right.
Okay, so if you're new to gardening, you might think mulch is what all the people, like the wood chips or the gravelly stones that people put around like their bushes and whatnot for their landscaping, right? But many people don't realize that mulch is something that can be used in a vegetable garden.
But those are mulches.
Yeah, those are mulches, right? But what I'm saying is that it can be used in a different setting as well with the edibles. So mulch is basically anything that's going to cover the soil and help kind of protect the soil and shield your plants from things that are in the soil.
Right.
And it also kind of smothers the weeds, and in some cases, like when it's around pretty colored wood chips or gravel around bushes, it looks nice too.
Right, and it retains moisture, holds moisture in the ground, doesn't allow it to evaporate as quickly. The thing you want to keep in mind is anything in nature that there's soil underneath the material, anything in nature, woods, prairies, agriculture, or fields that are not tilled up for agricultural use, all have mulches. They all have some type of barrier nature has put on the ground to protect the soil, the microbial life, the soil web. Deserts are exception because it's sand, so it's not really, there's anything for protection there. But yeah, in nature, all things are in good shape when it comes to protecting the soil. So let's talk about types of mulches that we can use in our edible garden.
Okay, so one is that you can use grass clippings, and with that being said, they have to be weed seed free. So say it's been I guess a couple months since you cut your grass, and
I'll be cutting grass this next week, yeah.
And there's weed seeds in it. You don't want to use that. You also make sure that it hasn't been sprayed with any type of chemical, because and you want to make sure the grass clippings are dry.
Predominantly a weed and feed,
right?
Is
like a weed and feed,
yeah.
Right. So
the reason being is
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Calm down. So first, you want to make sure there's no weed seeds because you're not adding more weeds to your garden. Second, you want to make sure there's no chemicals, because even though you might let those grass clippings dry out, that chemical is still going to bond to the water molecules when it rains, and then it could cause problems and kill your plants.
Even through the composting process.
Even through the composting process as well. So you want to keep that in mind, that grass clippings. And then when you cut your grass, if you bag your grass clippings, then you want to spread them on your driveway or something so they dry out, and then you use them as mulch.
We will let them dry. You don't have to wait until they lose their pigmentation, from a brown. We're not trying to bale up hay here. We just want it to be dry, because if you put wet grass clippings around plants, that can encourage mold and fungal problems to develop, and actually can affect your plants by using that mulch. Now, mulching is 3, 4, 5 inches of dry grass clippings. That's fine. Works great. We saved leaves in our garden from last year. We have the predominant videos you will see on the website.
How many pounds of leaves did you save?
2,000 pounds of leaves. Yeah. I calculated it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked about that. But we have a lot of leaves. We have a lot of leaves, and that's all going to break down and feed the soil. So if you don't have leaves now, and you maybe don't want to bring in a lot of leaves, you can use straw. Straw is a very good product to use. Oat straw, wheat straw, barley straw. Predominantly what we have around here is wheat straw. And straw is the byproduct of the grain in which it's harvested.
So we did learn something from our talk that we gave, I don't know which one. Campbell Sport.
Yes.
That if you put the straw around your plants, it's obviously good. But if you put it in the walkways of your garden, it becomes quite slippery. Even if it's not wet, because it has that natural waxy type of coating. So you want to keep that in mind, that if you're going to use straw as mulch, keep it on your plants, but if you want something in your walkways, you could try something else.
And we want to avoid cardboard here. Cardboard is another mulch. We had a caller last year call in and say a predominant amount of cardboard is made with formaldehyde. Now, that is part of the embalming process during funeral procedures to preserve the body. That's your call whether or not you want to use it. I don't think there's going to be tonnage of formaldehyde. There are some fertilizers that actually have formaldehyde in them as one of the products that is used to make it.
Right. So
clearly not an organic means of fertilizer, but we have had fertilizers that have had formaldehyde in it. So it's not a uncommon thing in the garden world, but I want to bring that up so we're all aware of it.
Right, definitely. So you want to keep that in mind. You can use shredded paper. If you use shredded paper, you want to make sure you water it down, and it should kind of stick, but it's not. Definitely, it's not.
Multiple layers of newspaper.
Yeah, multiple layers of newspaper.
Fine. You want to avoid the paper that has that glossy film on it that the advertisements. If they're straight papers, fine. The ink on those papers are 100%, I think like 99.9% soy-based ink, so it does biodegrade. It will go. It's not like an oil-based material. So that's perfectly fine. A lot of people will use that. They'll layer it 5-6 layers, wet it down, put it around their plants as a barrier. Will break down and not necessarily feed the soil, but retain moisture and suppress weeds. And that's something we always want to do: hold water and keep from weeding as much as possible.
Right. So there's that. That's for the
wood chips. Let's talk about wood chips.
Wood chips are great mulch, especially around your non-edibles, because they look nice. You can use them around your edibles, especially if you're in a raised bed situation.
Or perennials.
Or perennials. But you have to keep in mind that if you mix those wood chips in with the soil, so if you leave them on the top, it's okay. But if you mix them in, then you're starting to have problems because those wood chips will suck the nitrogen out of your soil.
Yeah, it'll take a couple of years for it to break down, but it will remove a lot of... It will take a little bit of the nitrogen off the surface layer, but not as much as if you would physically dig them in 2 or 3 inches in the ground. Now, there's multiple types of wood chips in which you can use. We were at the Madison Garden Expo a couple of years ago, and one of the things that was brought up by one of the master gardeners, and I forget his name, he is for the University Extension Office, that there are some studies that are being shown that if you get wood chips from a tree that has a disease, once those chips are shredded up, you bring them in your garden, even a year or 2 later, that disease is still persistent, and it can kill some of the plants in which you are trying to grow in your garden. So if you're going to get wood chips, try to see, and you're going to use them for your garden, try to see if it's from a tree that's not been disease-ridden. Now, wood chips work great for around your asparagus bed, your rhubarb bed, your berry plants, anything like that. It works really, really well. Okay, now let's talk about the synthetic aspect.
Well, we also want to talk about cocoa mulch.
Cocoa mulch, that's right.
And so cocoa mulch is commonly used, again, with a lot of non-edibles, and there is some, people say that it causes mold. And the thing is that just like any type of mulch, if you put a lot of it down heavy and you water a lot and it rains a lot, you could get mold. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is, because you're layering natural things on top of natural things, and then you're adding water. And it's breaking down naturally. So if you do cocoa mulch, it does have more of a ability to mold, but you want to make sure that maybe you're not watering too much, or you're watering around the plants versus watering the entire garden. And obviously you can't control that if we have a rainy season, but if you're watering, be mindful of where you're watering.
Right, and there's some mulches that have some dyes in it that they will dye, and sometimes that dye is...
also, I think cocoa mulch is possibly harmful to dogs. You'd have to
chocolate.
The chocolate mulch.
It smells. That sometimes some of these mulches have a fragrance that can be toxic to your pets. And if you're concerned about the wildlife, that is something else that you want to do. Now, there is mulches, like rubber tire mulch, shredded rubber mulch. That you'll see that on the playground. Some people choose to use that sometimes around your plants. That's a decision you have. It's not going to break down. Anything synthetic is not going to break down. That's the thing. And then you got your gravels, your pea gravel on that as well. When it comes to, again, you don't want to use your rock gravel around your edible plants.
No, that wouldn't be good.
Because you're going to mix it in. Now, again, you want, and I would advise this with anybody working in the perennial realm of it, the berries, the asparagus, that type, wood chips would be the way to go. Because it's going to break down, feed the soil. Your rocks, your stones, they're not going to feed the soil.
No, I would just keep those to maybe around your landscaping bushes or whatnot.
Yeah, so the grass clippings, leaves, straw, shredded paper. Again, shredded paper, not the most appealing aspect of it, but it does work. The cardboard may contain some formaldehyde. And the way you would do that would be 1 or 2 layers of the mulch, or 1 or 2 layers of the cardboard, layer it, and then you could put, wet it down and get it to sink into the soil there. Wood chips. So that's some of the mulch.
Thank you for checking out the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. For more, go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for full-length in-studio video and podcast replay of Season 1. Season 2 underway and added weekly. Tweet us at TWVG Show or hashtag TWVG to be part of the program.